What's up, folks? Welcome to Nino's Corner.tv. I have got a great podcast today for FluffTube. I'm with SG. SG's in the house. SG, it looks to me like we are where DC is in complete panic mode. There's thousands of houses for sale now. Everyone's moving out of there. Everyone's jobless. The deep state is scrambling. 𝗬𝗏 is on deck. JD Vance um, delivers a shot across the bow to the European leaders with his Munich speech. Basically, they don't have a NATO anymore. They're scrambling. Zelensky's asking for a European army. I'm hearing our military right now is on high alert. Are you hearing the same thing?
I am Nino, and thank you for having me back. It's always good to be here. Um, with respect to the events that are to come, right, we have to remember that with the successful inauguration of Mr. T on the 20th of January, and the pace at which we're now moving through this period of justice and this ever accelerating, ever increasing awareness across the general population group of what has actually happened here at the epicenter of criminality that we call the U.S. government and the Washington, D.C. deep state establishment, they are simply out of options. And so moving through this period of time, this is going to be, I think, the most tenuous, the most delicate period, the period that we really need to watch out for. I'll be honest with you, I expected more of that immediately prior to the 20th of January and the 2 to 3 weeks leading up to that. It was a relatively quiet period of time with the exception of a great deal of military exercises surrounding the concept of counter WMD and other very large, CBRNE style training events. So the period of time that we're in now, however, is, I think, just as equally tenable with respect to all of that. And I think that we're in a period, quite frankly, where you're going to have to see overt public maneuvers of resistance made against the duly elected president of the United States. Because, at this point, for certain actors out there, it's a zero-sum game, and it really does not matter for them how this goes.
It is a zero-sum game. They have no choice left but to make a move. I thought this was going to happen earlier, like you did, but it's looking like it's going to happen now. Now, I got a lot of contacts. People are telling me military's on high alert. I got to say, I believe it. Folks, we're gonna do a lot of the podcast here, and then we're taking it to Nino's Corner.tv to go into detail on what we're talking about. But first, have you ever wondered what happened to the legendary Chuck Norris? I recently saw a video he made and I was shocked. He's in his 80s and still kicking butt and working out and staying active. What's even more shocking is he's stronger, can work out longer, and even has plenty of energy left over his grandkids. He did this just by making one change, folks. He says he did this and he still feels like he's in his 50s. His wife did this one thing too, and she's never felt better. She says she feels 10 years younger. Her body looks leaner and she has energy all day long. Chuck made a special video that explains everything. Make sure you watch it by going to chuckdefense.com/Nino or by clicking on the link below of this video. It will change the way you think about your health. Once again, that's chuckdefense.com/Nino. Click on it right now in the description box and learn what to do. It's really, really simple. Just a reminder, the legendary Chuck Norris is a whopping 84 years old and yet has more energy than me. He discovered he could do this. He could create dramatic changes to his health simply focusing on three things that sabotage our body as we age. Watch his method. Click the link below at chuckdefense.com/Nino. Get started on it. All right. SG, it almost seems to me like I've been getting a lot of calls lately from my contacts, and I have quite a few contacts, different people in different camps. And I like to make sure before I do any kind of podcast I got everything right. So I call a few people to see what they're all hearing, and it's all adding up to me. A move has got to be made. They're kind of in a situation now where we're in Mexico. We got our special forces training the military there now, which is unbelievable for the cartels. China's got their hands in Mexico. You can't serve two masters. A lot of stuff is going on with Canada. Trump is moving extremely fast, and he's cleaning out all the federal agencies as we speak, to the point that they're leaving Washington, D.C. in droves. Correct, SG?
That is correct. And to your point, Nino, we now have just within the last few days a certain attempted event at a certain nuclear power facility or former nuclear power facility in the northeastern region of Ukraine. And we've been talking about a very large-scale civilization-style event. You could call it a terrorism attack, perhaps. You could call it a deep state resistance move, whatever you want to term it as. We've been sort of talking about this, and that's been coming from the pulpit of Mr. T as well for a very long time, right? Well over a year at this point. All last year, we saw discussions about this need for a missile defense shield across the United States of America. Why would that be a rhetorical talking point coming from that individual in such a repetitive fashion?
Are you talking about the Iron Dome for America?
Indeed. Indeed. And so when we look at, the situation that's now happening with respect to this upcoming summit, we've got a fresh round of sanctions that have been implemented in the Middle East, which are absolutely draining certain coffers here. USAID has been hit very, very hard by activities going on. And that turns off an unbelievable number of water faucets of dark pool money and off book budgetary funding and things like that for what we would call that deep state opponent. So looking at this, landscape that's playing out, Nino, I think that the logical progression of events is that the next move is going to have to be much more overt. We're already seeing a string of aerial and aircraft related incidents. They love their symbolism. They love their patterns and playbooks. We know that particular pattern goes really all of the way back to the 50s and the 60s, accelerated again in the 80s. We saw events in the 90s, and of course, 9/11, 2001 being sort of the ultimate example of that over the last half century. And so we're seeing a buildup clearly towards a much larger resistance move because all of this is happening concurrent with the international geopolitics, which are driving, I think, a number of these screws. And again, I'm going to come back and highlight the attempted attack on that radiological site with an intent to blame Moscow and then cause an international incident and potentially a humanitarian catastrophe. That's the level of desperation that we're dealing with. So while we do have victory in certain components on the battlefield and we are advancing that forward, we have to stay alert and we have to stay vigilant.
Right here, I'm showing a picture of all the houses that are up for sale right now in DC. I mean, they're getting the hell out of there. And like you see the comments down below saying, don't come to Texas, move to California. This is crazy. I mean, look at this, man. These are all just recent houses up for sale. Now, I'm gonna play the JD Vance speech so you and I can commentate it on ninoscorner.tv. I'm gonna go ahead and play that there because I want to play it in its entirety, and I don't want to have to stop and pause every second on FluffTube. But that was really a shot across the bow. They're realizing now, right, SG? Oh man, there is no NATO without the United States. There is no NATO without their tax dollars, correct?
That's absolutely correct. And we're now seeing that landscape develop out. And you're absolutely right in the characterization. That was the opening salvo of a new way of doing things. There is a new sheriff in town. And so that European shadow state structure is also going to have to respond to that, right? They're also going to have to do whatever they can to self-preserve, because what Moscow and other nations will eventually find out, taken from the landscape and from the countryside there in Ukraine, is that a number of individuals in the Western world in elected positions of power and also across unelected bureaucracy positions of power, influence, and control are going to be implicated in severe and international levels of criminality.
And here JD Vance is basically dropping the hammer on all of them, and you could just see in the audience they're in disbelief. The first big shot across the bow was Trump when he spoke at Davos. And I noticed that Trump, the seal behind him, I think I talked about it with you, or I could have talked about it with Ron, but the seal behind him had the eagle's head pointed toward the arrows, not the olive branch. Am I right in saying that's a massive calm right there, SG?
It absolutely is. We've now pivoted from essentially, if I was to interpret that communication in an irregular warfare signaling capacity, Nino, I would characterize that as we have now turned from the period of time where olive branches will be extended to the period of time where arrows will fly. There is no ability now. There's no more time for switching of sides, selection of teams, agreeing to cooperate and assist humanity in this process or not. It's now open war. And that's exactly what we've seen with respect to the behavior of the Trump administration. Trump is moving in the capacity right now inside the government. Just, I think, what we're coming up on 4 weeks in at this point, publicly and visibly for the world, and we're moving at a pace not unlike a pace that one would move in an active military campaign to blitzkrieg a battlefield. And so I believe that, you're exactly right with respect to what JD Vance is highlighting, and with respect to what Trump is highlighting, and highlighted with the Davos speech, and what was behind that, that backdrop that's cast behind that speech. I'm sorry, here I got my little one knocking on the door.
Okay, but you could see the eagle's head pointed towards the arrows here in this picture.
Indeed. And so this is an incredible period of time that we're living through, because the deep state apparatus, the component of the enemy that we would characterize as the shadow structure in the background, is now seeing itself flushed out, cleaned out, withered away, quite literally, as evidenced by the home sales that you showcased just a moment ago. They're just simply not going to survive this. And so massive counter moves, potentially the last sequences of counter moves that they may have left in the arsenal, are going to have to be played in a relatively short amount of time.
People need to realize that right now we are in the most critical time, right, SG? This is it. We are in the most critical time. I thought, October, November, December, but I guess it would be now, right, SG? I mean, I don't want to keep moving the goalposts back, and I know that's probably what it sounds like with a lot of people, but when you really study this stuff and you really look into it and you understand what's happening with the global politics and just where the world is at right now and how we've upended the apple cart, we are in a critical situation right now, correct, SG?
Absolutely correct. Because until this time, Nino, we've been operating in a very unusual period here in the United States. I've called it a cog for a long time. Other people call it different things. Fundamentally, the last 4 years was sort of like the Twilight Zone mixed with the Truman Show, and everyone could see that something was absolutely off the rails with respect to the pattern of behavior and the rate and pace of disintegration of certain structures around the rest of the planet, certainly to include economic on that, as well as militarily and industrially. Now, however, we are in a period of time where those multinational and transnational institutions, factions, and entities are being literally threatened and dismantled. They're being literally defunded. They're now, it's sort of like, in a military campaign, there's a lot of talk and there's a lot of rhetoric that goes back and forth before an actual shot is fired. But once a shot is fired, every movement that is then made from that point forward occurs as a direct result and a reaction to whatever occurs physically, kinetically, and recordably on the ground from the other side. And so we now are in a kinetic period of dismantling this power structure, and this power structure, quite literally what's left of it, will have no choice but to resist and fight back or be relegated to extinction regardless.
Right here, I have Mexico's engagement with China. This is in 2024. China has their tentacles very deep into Mexico and into South America. And now 𝗧𝗵𝗶𝗀 is playing ball with Trump, but you can't serve two masters, and you definitely can't serve three masters: cartels, China, which China does control the cartels to a degree, and Trump. So she is in a very precarious situation, a dangerous situation. What's your thoughts on that? I mean, do you think this is going to last? I mean, this friendly, we just have our special forces right now going to Mexico, start teaching their military how to engage with the cartels, but you're actually showing the cartels how to engage with itself. Makes no sense. So what's your view on Mexico right now? Because this is a very strange situation developing for me, and I think it's especially dangerous for 𝗬𝗂𝗃𝗓𝗏.
Well, I would not want to be 𝗦𝚱𝗰𝗶𝗹 at this particular period in time, because I have pretty significant questions on the legitimacy of her election with relation to the general views of the larger population groups. But with respect to the issue of which master we're going to end up serving here, how this is going to play out, I think what's going to happen, quite frankly, is you're going to see, excuse me, a resignation or several resignations from individuals all across the Mexican government in response to the activities happening on the ground inside the country right now, which are going to spawn off much larger active segmental campaigns. So you've got, like you said, certain forces training the Mexican military with certain tactical equipment, understandings, battlefield understandings, and application of knowledge and engagement. And those trainings, which are going to include a number of thousands of forces by the time that it's over, will certainly end up as a very large, probably cooperative or coalition style militarized threat against the paramilitary groups known as the cartels, which have just recently been designated as official terrorist organizations, which brings them into U.S. jurisdiction from a military standpoint. It makes them military combatants rather than individuals and agencies that can be handled by civilian capable law enforcement. I think in response to this, you're going to see a great deal of investment money coming out of Beijing into the Western Hemisphere to build up projects that are not currently being directly impacted by this. A number of those projects are across the Mexican landscape, but many dozens of others are throughout the rest of Central and South America. And I think what's going to happen here is the Belt and Road Initiative itself is going to accelerate in the Western Hemisphere because it's going to feel that its time is short. And that may eventually drive a negotiation landscape or an environment where President DJT and President Xi are able to get together and have a broader discussion, perhaps more based in what's happening on the ground with respect to the Western Hemisphere.
Folks, get your collagen. Did you know 2024 study found collagen supplements can boost? All right, everyone, calm down. I already know already. You're all hissing and booing at me, but I got to do this. Hydration by 14%, improve elasticity by 23%, and reduce wrinkles by nearly 20% in just 12 weeks. This is your sign to use collagen to transform your skin from the inside out. But unfortunately, most collagen typically found in store shelves is filled with junk. That's why I've been using this amazing product. I put it in my coffee right here, folks, for the past few years, and I'm obsessed with the results. Unlike other collagen supplements, this collagen uses the top 5 types of collagen for skin health. This premium collagen blend works together to help reduce visible signs of aging, reduce the wrinkles, promote a youthful glow, promote elasticity, and promote skin hydration. I just mix it into my morning coffee, and the rest handles itself. Try it yourself and start healing your skin. Place your order while it's 51% off now at Health with Nino. Plus, you'll receive a VIP live health and fitness coaching for life, a free ebook titled The 14 Foods for Amazing Skin, a 60-day satisfaction guarantee, a free shipping if you order now. Get on it, folks. Health with Nino, baby. Yeah. You take collagen, SG?
No, Nino, I never have.
Well, if you're getting older, you might think about it. It helps.
Indeed.
I mean, we can worry about World War III, but we got to also worry about how we look. So SG, I gotta say, man, things are heating up. Let's go back to the back channel, Nino's Corner.tv right now, and I want to commentate on this JD Vance speech in Munich, and then I want to get your insight on the high alert with the military and what does that mean. So, all right, folks, we'll see you over at Nino's Corner.tv. Sound good, SG?
Sounds good. God bless all.